As the Crow Flies on the Vance Crow Podcast.
Jerod McDaniel, welcome to the podcast.
How's it going, Vance?
It's interesting. You and I have known each other for a long time. We've done a trip all the way up to Alberta, Canada, where we saw the Agribition, and we did a podcast together there. But I've never actually had a time to sit down and interview you. You are an Oklahoma cattle rancher. You live out in the Panhandle, way the hell away from people. You've got a bunch of kids and a wife, and you live in rural America. And you are a very interesting guy. You have a podcast that I think is probably the maybe cleanest and simplest in terms of you don't put on any political spin on stuff. You've got to sit there. You have to know the industry, but you open it right up and you talk about things that are in an uncensored way, things that people don't often talk about. And a lot of people listen to you and a lot of people don't agree with you, but they sure want to know what you have to say. So my audience isn't necessarily that same cattle hard scrabbling farmers. I know I've got a lot of ag there, but there are a lot of people that are listening there in all different kinds of industries from all over the country. So why don't you give me a rundown? What is coronavirus on April 1st of 2020 in Texahoma, Oklahoma? What is going on for a guy like you?
It's pretty much life as normal in terms of like work and what we do on a daily basis. I mean, now we have the kids home. Everybody's kind of in the same boat with that. So, and it's really kind of cool. It seems like life has gotten more simple. We're all, at home doing stuff together. It's really a kind of a cool transition that has almost kind of evolved through all this. So, I mean, normal everyday life for me is getting up, feeding cattle, getting ready to plant corn probably in about a month or so. So we're just all in, prepping, getting ready, going to town, just working on that.
And when you say we're going to go plant corn, talk about what it looks like in today's day and age, a modern age. What is it like to go out and plant corn?
Okay. Well, before you plant, you've got to get the ground ready, and I'll strip till. So that basically involves one pass with the tractor actually creating little strips that we're going to plant onto, which will band fertilizer in the actual strip with. Then we will sometimes put down a chemical as a barrier to weeds and then incorporate that with water, kind of pre-water, get everything settled in, ready to go. And then we actually plant. So we put the tractor with the planter in the field and basically go one pass across and then probably spray again. And then we're ready to go.
And then what are you planting when you're doing that? You're taking seeds that you made last year. Obviously, I know that's not how you do it, but a lot of people don't understand. Where do you even get seeds to plant?
You bet. No, that comes from most seed companies. You Pioneer. There's Bayer, who has all DeKalb, Monsanto channel, or not Monsanto, but anyway, just seed companies basically generate the hybrid seeds, and we buy them and go plant those.
And then you also buy chemicals and things like that every single year, or how do you do that?
Yeah, typically I buy chemicals from our local warehouse, or, if they don't have something, you can find it online. You can pretty easily find chemicals and inputs now, but, for the most part, we're fortunate to have good local solid supply, so all that stuff is basically on hand for the season. So I think we're pretty good with that, as far as actual inputs that are in the field.
So that was my exact point. I've been hammering on you. So full disclosure, Jerod and I talk with a couple other friends all the time. Throughout the day, we're texting back and forth with one another. And today when you and I talked, I was a little worked up because I have concerns about how are the farmers going to make sure that COVID-19 doesn't knock them out from actually farming. And you seem totally cool about this, but I was talking with my buddy Brian Scott, and he was like, I don't have a plan if I get sick. I don't have a backup plan for planting these acres. I probably ought to get one. But do you have one? Are you worried about that?
Yeah, the plan A, don't die. That's kind of like the first thing. There's another guy that works with me, and between the two of us, we're kind of splitting our odds that we can get it done. And then, of course, I do have a wonderful wife and a large family that, strapping kids that they know how to run and take care of cattle. So, if we had to, that we've got several several able bodies willing to step in and do work.
How old
So,
are your kids that they could handle cattle?
15 and 16-year-olds, easy. I mean, that's not a problem.
And as a dad, you're like confident they can get in there, even if I'm not there. I don't, like, what do you think about your kids interacting with your livestock? And
that's why I have all these years prior to this, we've had them in the facilities working animals with us. They are left to go handle whenever it's time to sort, when it's time to bring them up. They can vaccinate, they can work cattle, they can sort, they can gather. Anything any able-bodied grown man or woman could do, they can function to do it. Now, they're still going to make mistakes, but that's part of the learning process. And in times like this, they're expected to step up and do what's necessary too. I mean, it's not fun, but they also understand that this is the life we have, and especially now that they're at home, that's something that takes place. And even younger kids can do it, or ones that are in
How old did you start your kids doing this kind of stuff?
Oh, when they're young, they go with us. Like when you're driving out working, you have something that maybe they can ride along, or they ride in a tractor. They're always there kind of observing, but actual hands-on, usually about 10, 11, 12 is kind of when they start to get like where they can build some fence or do things with their hands. Or, there's no point in getting the young kid hurt. They need to understand how to take a fall or something along that nature. They have to be old enough to get the hell out of the way so they don't get hurt.
You really do have a different existence right now than people living in the city, and not just because of the work that you do, but also I think there are a lot of people living in the city right now that they are 100% responsible for their kids. They're not turning any of the responsibilities over to the kids to be able to help the family survive this challenge. Do you know what I mean? Like, the experience of the parent is, you're trying to provide for your kids, right? But
of course,
you've got a fallback there where your kids could be asked, hey, your mom, isn't feeling well and is going to be out for 20 days. You got to step up and take care of these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they would totally be able to do it. I mean, and the thing is, the older ones can take the younger ones and teach them, and it's a continual learning experience. And honestly, one of the neat things is, since we've been kind of, on nature's lockdown, or whatever the hell you want to call it, ever since we've been on that,
nobody's calling it nature's lockdown. You made that sound like that was just
that's what everybody they calls it. But no, the thing is I do think that it provides a great real world learning laboratory, because we have the kids out doing things now and they're learning at a more exponential pace. I mean, before, they're learning stuff in books. It's really cool to think about. They're actually getting more good out of every day's ritual and learning at home than they did probably sitting there waiting to take some test to determine that they've actually, learned something or not throughout the year. It's kind of funny when you think of how we're approaching education to people, really, now that, and I think that will change.
I think as parents that have had a good relationship with their kids and have the time while they're at home, they may be, crushed under other deadlines. But if you had the chance to spend some of this time at home with your kids focused on their education, and you got along well with your kids, you watch them take off. My brother, Dan, Dan, his son, Oliver, he couldn't have a better teacher than Dan, because Dan knows all his tricks. So all the things that kid would have done to try and get away with stuff, Dan knows how to handle that, and also how to motivate him and how to get him going. I just think that the ag lifestyle, that culture part of it, is a huge difference between parents living in the country and parents living in the city. It's why I'm so interested in hearing how you and Julie have taken care of homeschooling now that COVID's going on. What are you guys doing day in and day out?
Well, just like everybody else, the first couple of weeks are kind of like, oh, this is happening and we're here and we're hanging out, and it's kind of, a new adventure, but there's not a lot of structure. Then you start to get a little bit down the road and you're like, all right, well, we have this time. Let's make good use of it. Let's not, piss it away on just sitting there staring at screens. There's other things that we can accomplish right now. And we start, we really have no clue how to do it. So the best way to learn is just by doing. So they made a schedule. I think it was art, math, reading, see what else, recess, PE, any kind of physical thing outside. And then we have shooting, which is really cool because we've had the kids little BB guns and 22s, depending on their age. The little ones aren't ready for a 22 yet, but it's just been really cool. Every day you go out and take a paper plate and you just shoot 10 rounds into it. And it's a little competition I look forward to every day. But it's also teaching them the skill of marksmanship and firearm safety. You can, you're raising your kids because you don't know what world they're going to be in, but they damn well better be ready. So
that's, man, I think that people probably hear what you're describing, and although they don't understand naturally the amount of work that you have to do, I think there are a lot of people that wish they had an opportunity, the kind of freedom to be able to walk out into their backyard and do shooting lessons with their kids.
You could BB guns, you could shoot them all day long. They don't make any noise. You could do that. You could do that today. I mean, they could probably buy them online and put a paper plate 10 feet away or pellet guns, find a piece of plywood. That's all you need. You could even shoot it in your living room unless you're just a really shitty shot. Then you probably break a TV or something.
So how much of the guns and ammunition and things that you have at your house do you have there for protection of yourself and your family?
Basically all of them. Or, if we had to hunt for food, that would be another use for them. But no, basically all the guns. I mean, it's not like you can only use these guns for home defense. They're kind of all for that. And also we use them, pretty actively for, we have coyotes or stray dogs that will wander into the yard. People typically don't have this, but out in the country, people that are tired of dealing with animals will just drive and open and dump them. And then those animals will show up at farmhouses. You don't know who this dog is, where it comes from, but yet sometimes you have to deal with a strange dog that maybe hasn't eaten or, it may be crazy. It may be friendly. Sometimes you have to dispatch a dog, and firearms are very handy for that. So,
yeah, you wouldn't want to be in a situation where you didn't have one in that case.
Yeah, I mean, those are just real world things. Snakes, snakes are always around in the summer. You need to be able to shoot a rattlesnake if you see one. There's numerous things that we actually have practical daily use for guns, and pretty much everybody, even before this, everybody always carried firearms. It wasn't like this isn't some change of pace in our world. Now I understand like other places that may seem different or radical, but that's pretty much how everybody exists. It is a very much a culture of self-reliance. You look out for your neighbor, but first and foremost, you look out for yourself and your family.
So you take COVID seriously. I know that because, when you talked about going to Walmart to pick up some bikes for your kids, you did gloves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about what do you think of this disease? What is it? How do you think it works? How dangerous is it? What are your thoughts on it spreading?
Just like anything, you see it go like wildfire in the news and you watch all this stuff and how it moves. It's hard to ignore. You can't say this isn't real. I mean, part of me wants to believe that, this is just a dream you wake up from, but that's slowly fading as every day goes on. But for the most part, I think it's it's kind of a fascination with how everything is going, how the society is reacting to it. I'm really puzzled and kind of enamored with just society rebuilding itself because it has to, not because it wants to, which is something entirely different that I've ever experienced in my lifetime.
One of the people I'm going to have on tomorrow for the podcast is a guy that runs an HVAC company. And I want to know, how are people treating the people that are going in and fixing your heating and cooling and your plumbing and your electrical in your house when everybody thinks that a stranger is full of toxic chemicals? So you need this person to come to your house, and yet you're like, I don't know, they might spread this terrible disease to my wife or my kids or my in-laws, whatever. And
you spray them with Lysol when they come in. You just you douse them in that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could take extreme measures, and there reaches a point you have to realize that we are existing in this reality. Now, I may need groceries, and I may think like Walmart is the pit of whatever thing that is going on, just because of interaction, and it's like a staple place. But you can shut down that insecurity of dying or whatever and just go get shit done. Go take care of it, wear gloves, be safe, wash your damn hands, do all this stuff that's practical and in reality is very easy to do, and protect yourself and protect your family. Keep your, don't have your don't have your people all running out and playing with each other. Just stay away for a little bit. I mean, in animals, and you see this in nature, even a sick one will tend to isolate itself. And I'm sure that's some kind of evolutionary thing that, hey, get the sick one out of the herd so we don't just infect everybody. And animals also have, undergone years and years of vaccines to keep them from sick because they gather in a herd. I mean, you look long term at this, and I think you could actually see how you have kind of the nucleus of cities is almost the perfect breeding ground for this. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or anything that people live in cities. I'm just saying that's a fact that any kind of concentrated human gathering is just perfect place for this to happen. And fortunately, like where we live, it's very wide open and actually very sparsely populated, and ironically has been kind of dying a slow disease of its own of just economics, substance. So there's a whole
like right now you are
together.
in your own podcasting studio, which is actually a building that you own in your downtown, right?
Yeah. It was been I think when I was a kid, it was a video rental store. It's been several things over the years. A friend of mine had it. He owned a trucking business, and then he built another office, and so I bought this from him and then turned it into what it is now. But yeah, I mean, real estate is so cheap. If it hasn't imploded on itself and collapsed in a downtown, you can pretty much probably offer someone $10 a month or something, some ridiculously low amount. You could probably rent any building in any downtown.
Because otherwise the value is $0.
Exactly. No one wants to be the guy who rents for nothing. But the fact is that there's tons of real estate out here. It'd be interesting to see if someone from a city doesn't see that and say, why don't I just go buy a building in small town rural America and live in a building? It's totally doable. And it's probably a wild investment idea that people haven't capitalized on yet, because it's still every downtown in every small town of America has at least 5 to 10 buildings wide open.
So going back to your kind of example where cities are the petri dish, right? This is where things are going to end up coming up. And I have a friend, I don't know, they'd want to be connected with this quote, but they refer to cities as CAFOs, right? The confined, what is that? What does even a CAFO stand for? Confined animal feeding operation?
Yeah, confined animal feeding operation.
Which, now, to a rancher, that's a fine word. Fine, CAFOs are fine. But to people living in the city, to say, "Hey, did you know you're living in a CAFO?" They would be upset about that, man. They would not want to think about the fact that they're stacked on top of each other, being fed from the countryside.
I don't mean to, I'm not saying this degrading. I don't think it's a bad thing, but they're feedlots. I mean, essentially, people exist in those areas, and it's very concentrated. It's very efficient. I mean, this is one thing that I think is going to be phenomenal to watch going forward is these new efficiencies that are going to come out, where you're going to see maybe some real badass stuff, like you'll get maybe a complete database of cattle producers across the United States, and then you could then take that, go with it, and then anybody who was interested in buying directly from a rancher, you could go to them. We could bypass the whole old market of we take it to slaughter takes it to processing, like the whole roundabout way. We could bypass that.
Dude, okay,
and this is how to do this.
You and I have been talking about this for a year at this point.
Yeah.
Like I've been saying, Jerod, what does it take for me to get a cow from you? I want to slaughter it. I'll get a freezer. I'll put it in there. And you were like, man, you don't even understand how hard that is. I have hundreds and hundreds of cattle. They're all over my property, my hundreds of acres. But to get them slaughtered and sent to you is really difficult. And I was like, man, not only would I pay money for that, a lot of people I know would pay money for that. And then we can get around this country of origin labeling argument that you guys are always into. Just let me buy from my farmer.
Well, there's the deal. I think that's where we're going, because how much more concerned are people about their food security now? What do you think? Do you think people are more jacked up about not necessarily
not
where it
everybody?
Comes from,
No, so I am keyed up on it to the point of probably going over the edge, right? Like I'm probably a little bit, but I can tell you that right now I could call up 50 people with no problem and sell them a half a cow if they had the freezer space for it. I could do it, and I could do it for 10x, whatever the grocery, no, I don't know, 10x, 5x, whatever you're getting at the grocery store, because people want it, and they want it now, and they don't want to have to go to the grocery store. But the reason we can't do that is because we don't have slaughter facilities.
Well, if I could even get a slaughter space where I could get it butchered and frozen and put in brown boxes, they would then have to find a way to get it from where I live to where they are. Now, in the winter, that would be easy. Bring a pickup. It's frozen outside. Throw it in the back. You drive. It's perfect to do. In the summer, you got to keep it refrigerated. So maybe this is something
people are willing to pay the freight costs, man. People are willing to pay the freight, and you could have it. Find some guy that'll do it in the back of a old Schwann truck.
Hey,
and
maybe that's the thing. Maybe this is a new employment, a jobs opportunity.
Hell yeah, it is.
Beef, straight beef delivery.
And everybody, if you do this delivery right, nobody has to touch whatever's going on here, right?
But imagine what if it's me, and then you look and somewhere over there's another guy who is maybe 100 miles closer, but you could buy from him. And that's what you say. You distribute that network, and then everybody has access to an immediate beef. They just got to work out the slaughter problem.
There's a website called. I mean, that's when I couldn't get it from you, I went out and got it myself, right? So I want to look this name up here, but I found this this company that would send me a bunch of beef and chicken, and like it was expensive, but it tastes great, and now they're my friends.
I got a question. If I hauled a live cow to you, would you kill it and butcher it like in your backyard?
I'm not going to.
No. The ultimate experience. If you could, because think about it. People don't have anything to do, but imagine if they could learn, watch YouTube videos, get all excited, get all their tools, because this is like a new sport, like home slaughter. And then I bring the animal, we knock it in the head, and then somebody takes it and strings it up, and then you could have at home slaughter, and then you'd go immediately to your freezer, just like they used to do back in the 50s.
The same as the people that are doing craft beer.
Yeah, kind of like that. Why not? Why not have?
Because of the waste. Cool hobbies because of the terrible waste that would come with that. I mean, those animals have a significant amount of blood. You have a lot of stuff you're throwing out there. Like, people don't keep things clean. Like, I mean, I'm not saying regulate them, but people that, like, if I told my wife that I was going to slaughter a pig in the backyard, you're living in a dream, Jerod. This isn't going to happen. But I like where you're going.
You get hungry enough, it will.
I may need to start doing these podcasts at night like this all the time. This is a lot of fun. So let's go back to coronavirus stuff, because it's not just coronavirus, but the oil prices, like other things are going on in the world right now, actually have a significant impact on people raising cattle right now. You were telling me about it. I got another friend, Brian Mose, up in North Dakota. He's got this exact problem. But describe the ethanol problem going on right now.
Yeah, well, it started today with me because we're having a hard time getting future shipments of DDG cubes, which, for people that don't know, DDGs are a byproduct of the ethanol industry. They're just basically, you get ethanol, the straight stuff that goes in your gasoline, then you also get just a byproduct that's basically like mash left on the bottom of those fermenters, that then it's dried out and it's called distiller's grain. Anyway, that could be made compressed into a cube, which we use to feed our cattle out on range to stimulate the rumen with protein, which then enhances their ability to make use of the grass and sends it further. Has to do with forage resource and grazing and all this stuff. So essentially, that's a very necessary ingredient that we have, that we've gotten very accustomed to using, and it's been relatively cheap. It's worked. It's been affordable. It's it was just a great product. But now that we see that,
I don't think most Americans have any idea what's going on with oil at all. No idea.
Well, the problem with oil now is twofold. You have, before all this started, you kind of had an oil war between Russia, Saudi Arabia, and really America kind of is caught in the crossfire, because basically they dumped all the oil on the world, and now you started having that. Then you had the double whammy of, nobody's driving, and then nobody's driving anywhere in the world, and oil demand has just went down to nothing.
And they're not flying. There's just nobody. Like they're going to run 60% less flights out of my airport. That is fuel.
Yeah. So you start to get this buildup. You start to get this. This is where we get into supply chain derivatives that are going to really mess with people. You start to get in. Okay, there's a buildup of oil. So then people aren't driving. So we don't need the additive ethanol. Well, then ethanol plants start to shut down. Now they still use some, but we don't. Our stockpiles are getting big. So now this very necessary thing that you might need, ethanol or oil or all these energy things that the world still works on, there's an abundance because of the shock to the system. Now, if we come out of this and we all of a sudden say, oh, we need all this stuff, all that shit's offline, because guess what? You've stopped it. You've choked it out. So it takes a little while to
because people don't
restart.
understand, like, refineries shut down. People go home.
Literally,
they don't have jobs.
There is somewhere in there is literally a valve that is turned and the oil flow stops going through it. So now, I don't know if they actually shut them completely down, but they basically are done.
And this relates both to coronavirus and just the regular world. I mean, this would be going on right now without coronavirus. And then you couple that with the fact that you could start shutting these things down, and you don't know what kind of wobbly effects coronavirus is going to have on refineries or shipping or any other number of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I brought this, I think I shared this with you in a text, and I'll bring it up here. You have to look at the people that are deemed essential almost as disposable in a way by society, because you need those people to be out there making all that stuff work. And society has kind of said, well, you are, it's like they tell this huge story. Everybody stay inside because it's dangerous. Don't expose yourself. Stay in, blah, blah, blah. It's very, very much a real thing. Stay inside. But the people that have to go to work to make the food, to, I literally make the food in a carry-out restaurant. People that, are doctors, policemen, firemen, the people that are deemed essential, they actually still have to go to work and do what they have to do within the context of now they're out with, this supposed boogeyman flying around. So it's a weird dichotomy how that is, how you have essential but could also be deemed disposable, because you need those people on the front line for society to function and still be able to come through this.
I mean, I had a real problem at my house, and that is that I got geothermal installed, and then I got these wells drilled out in my front yard. And because of that, the ground mounded over. And you don't want to mash it down until after you've gone through a winter and then a spring, so it freezes and then thaws and it comes down. But I needed to get that thing leveled out because water was being trapped between that trench in my house and coming in my basement. All right, so I got to get this fixed. And if I wait for the rains in St. Louis, that could be real bad. It could be real expensive. It could cause all kinds of problems in my basement. So I'm like, I need to find somebody that can do this. And there was a guy a couple houses down doing bobcat work, skid steer work. And I just went over there and was like, hey, what would it cost for you to do this for me? And he was this Mexican guy, I think, and as opposed to Guatemalan or Nicaraguan or something. And he came over and he was like $200. He could have said $1,000 and I'd have been like, I'll pay it. I would have paid anything to have it, because there was no way I was going to get on the phone and be able to call somebody to come down and do that.
Yeah. Well, that's where you're going to get into real, the $1,000 would have been what you paid if you would have actually got a hold of someone to come out and fix it for you. But the guy who was running the skid steer probably would have got $50. Well, right now that guy just got $200.
That's right.
Instead of 50.
That's exactly
right.
And
he quadrupled his wages by bypassing, because you and him were connected. So this is the middleman, the magic of, we'll lose a whole bunch of people in the middle, but we'll gain a whole bunch of new things that'll be just cool as hell that nobody ever thought about.
I felt nothing.
Delivery service, man.
I feel nothing but respect for delivery service people, because there are a lot of people sitting in their houses, including myself. And these people are saying, now is my chance to make some money. And I will tip them whatever they want, they don't ask for it, but I try and go way beyond, because I'm like, thank you for doing this service. Thank you for being one of the people that wants to come out and take some risk, but is getting stuff done. I'm grateful to them.
Yeah. Well, now, and the weird thing is, a little bit that I found is a lot of these things that you think would be real busy, from the people I've talked to, like delivery services, they're like, no, we're not real busy. It's like people have kind of shut down. I think that's one of the biggest problems that I see with the economy is.
Wait. What do you mean people think they aren't? If I want to get delivery for my grocery stores right now, it used to be I could put it in and 2 hours later I would have my groceries. Now, if I put in an order this morning, Tuesday morning, I will not get something until Sunday night.
So that takes longer?
Oh my God, it takes almost a week now. If I want to get it delivered, it takes a
world.
week. Whereas before it was 2 hours.
But you know what's funny? It probably explains it, because out here the bottleneck doesn't exist, because people, I think people were probably a little more stocked up in that. What do you think about that when you saw the first runs on supplies? Because they've been replenished. I mean, are there places still out of food?
It's not that they're out of food. It's that they're limited quantities of things. So, and people go and then they buy a whole bunch of it up. Now, I think on some of the things they've caught up on, because people are only going to eat so much bread, but there are a lot of things. And I think one of the things that this whole thing has uncovered is people in America don't know how to cook. So they buy the packaged, processed, created foods, which is why that's a whole nother added component of the supply chain that you have to keep going, which is and if you don't, I think Americans right now, some of them are learning to cook and taking the time to cook good, healthy food, and some of them are eating junk food. And we're going to watch who waddles out and who runs out, really.
You know what I thought was funny is about day 7 or something, day 8, kind of into like the first, after President Trump said, okay, here's the day 2 weeks from now. So that's the reference point. But like day 7 or 9, you go to the grocery store and people are still kind of pretty good about walking around then. And you weren't running out of fresh vegetables and those kind of things. You were running out of shit like cereal, because it was like, we have to eat, and that's all some people can eat. I mean, it's really the first time in America's existence, outside of maybe the 1920s breadline experience. So obviously hardly anybody is alive today that experienced that, but Americans are getting a dose of, you can't get what you want. And that's I think it's been a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow, or it's becoming one, maybe. And
maybe that's a central component of what the American dream is, but you can't see the dream if you've been living in it for so long, right? Like,
I think you're exactly right. I think people didn't realize how good we had it. I mean, and self included. I'm not castigating anybody.
Yeah,
I'm saying
that's why travel and those kinds of things, getting out, is really helpful. Because when I went to the Peace Corps and I was living in rural Africa, there's all these things that you're like, oh my God, I never thought about the fact that having running water at your house means you can take a bath, or you can move your feces from inside the house to outside the house, and you don't have to go to an outhouse. Like, you just don't think about that stuff now because it's been so central to your life.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the big things that I think has happened in the last. I heard somebody, you read so much and your brain gets so full of stuff, you forget where you found it, but something to the effect that since 1950 or 60, America has kind of been put on, like the leaders are essentially just theater actors, because there hasn't been anything that they have, like, since the wars ended, our government really doesn't do anything. It doesn't really protect us from stuff. And so, we have a war every now and then, but for the most part, the people who are in power are just whoever can placate the biggest group the most. Like, there wasn't much substance to the people running government.
And you know what? I think it's because the Cold War that the government used to keep themselves, like, look, we're really important. You really need us because we're fighting tooth and nail with the commies over in Russia. After a while, all of these different fights that we were in, but we never actually got in because at this point people have nuclear weapons. Like, we lost that sense of like, oh, thank God they're building fallout shelters and they're doing these things for us. And you couldn't get the entire country to rally around climate change the way that you could get them to rally around the Russians are evil. And it definitely, our country was moving apart because these guys were saying one thing was important and these guys were saying something else was important. But now everybody is focused on this thing is really important. And I think the biggest surprise to me is how quickly people came to accepting government force in this circumstance.
Yeah. Well, we're all living the same soap opera right now. That's the weird thing, is we're living in mass. And it's really, it's kind of like when you're herding cattle. If the entire group was wild or are wild, it's very hard to contain them, because you might get, if there's 100, you might get 25 going in one direction, and then 75 who are still crazy as shit take off the other way. So containing a herd of animals in a sense is very hard to do if all of them are crazy. Now, if just one or two, you control that one, and then all the other ones follow it. So you don't, if they're just isolated incidents of wild animals, then you can gather them pretty easy. You just control the crazy one. Now, if they're all tame and easy, you just wave some food and they walk right in behind you, and that's essentially where we're at with society.
Whoa, man!
You don't have all you do is you wave a little money, a little food, and everybody comes running. So we've lost our ability to be wild. We're still animals, and I think what we're doing is people are living, and people are going to get a little feral, which probably needs to happen. So they have a true understanding of a recognition of where they stood in life before this.
What does it look like to get a little feral?
You live by your own rules that you basically, provide the best you can for your family, and don't you survive.
I think the book
survival.
I think the book that I have read that has changed my life the most I would say maybe in my life, just that it was like a wake up thing before coronavirus happened, was The Undiscovered Self by Carl Jung. And in this book, he talked about a thing that you actually told me about that I needed to do to change in my podcast. So you at one point told me, like, Vance, you have to show your shadow a little bit more. Like, people need to understand that the public persona that you put on is not the same as, like, the guy that got you here. And the guy that got you here got in some trouble. And that's what I started exploring, right? The part that gets you in trouble is the part that gives your soul weight. And I think that when you run into deprivation, you can either impose that on yourself, have discipline, or the world will impose it on you, and then you'll find out you weren't ready, and then you'll learn it from that circumstance. And I think right now we're about to find a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, you just what your phrase there just described America. You're going to get all ready and find out you're not ready.
Right. I mean, I have been surprised at how much, and people are blowing off steam. But I am very mindful of what food we buy, what food we store, what food we eat, in what quantities. And my wife is pregnant, so she can have whatever she wants. But I really think about what I put in my grocery basket now and what I eat, because I'm thinking I want to be as healthy as possible. And I'm not saying that we are going to have instability, but in my lifetime, there's never been a point where there was potential for more instability than right now. So I think about, do I really want to eat this now, or do I want to make sure maybe I have it for tomorrow or the next day? Maybe I'll save it for tomorrow.
Well, and I think we've all kind of entered a scarcity mindset, which is what it is. But,
I don't think everybody has at all. No. I think
we're very much that way. You make the food that you need, and you eat everything. You don't waste it. You don't be wasteful. If you get something out, you drink it all, or you drink water. It's a very basic, primitive thing, but it's essentially survival 101. Like, get some resources. You might need some food. Get some ammunition. You might have to shoot something.
When did you start purchasing things? When did you start purchasing things because coronavirus was around and you wanted to make sure you had it?
January. I'd say January, early February. We were it was in the news, and we talked about it, and then we might go to Sam's and buy some extra stuff. Just nothing out of the ordinary, because with a large family, and we also live very rural, isolated. I mean, I'm 7 miles from my local town, basically 25 from the big town with 13,000 people, where there's the Walmart and all that. We're pretty isolated, so we already buy in bulk, so it's not a huge transition for us to have some extra supplies on hand. But we were mindful of it and started early. So by the time it arrived, we actually looked around and kind of said we're ready for it. It was a welcome. It's like, oh, well, something we actually prepared for happened. So
yeah, I started taking it serious in the beginning of March. So but when I started taking it serious, I mean, you were around. I started telling you guys, I'd love to go back and figure out who was the first one of us to start mentioning it and talking about it, because I, for a while, ignored it because I was like, hey, I got to get on planes and I got to go travel. And yeah. And I mean, I had noticed it when I was when I had a big trip in Canada start going. I mean, if you'd have told me back then, just at the beginning of March, the border between between Canada and the U.S. will be guarded and you will not be able to cross freely across it, I would have thought you were an insane person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happened.
Well, yeah, and I think that really everybody, for the most part, people are pretty much in shock. I think that it's still kind of that dream phase, and people are starting to realize, oh, life is starting to really change. And some of it's starting to come back to normal. I don't know that. I think it's still a matter of everything is so new and so many things are changing and so many new rules are being written. Like, you got to watch, because there's probably a lot of bad shit getting written into law, just like there was in the last panic. I mean, that stuff accidentally and intentionally. I'm not, it's just a function of crisis and chaos. That's all that is.
So I have an opinion about people going to churches during coronavirus, and I want to I'll articulate it, and then I'm interested to see what you think of it. And don't hold back. Don't pull any punches.
No problem.
With the coronavirus, I want public health officials to be able to issue the strongest warnings possible. The thing that says, "Hey, everybody, this is a very big deal. You should have your employer feel empowered to not make you go to work. You should feel empowered to stay in your home and separate from other people. Everyone should know that sports games should be eliminated." But when you start saying, as a government, this is the phone number to call us if you see people gathering to worship in groups, either at all or in groups of 10 or more, you are crossing a line that is the First Amendment. And if people want to make the choice to surround themselves with other people and be close to other people, I recognize that puts more people in danger. But on some level, people have to be able to make that choice, because that's the First Amendment, the right to assemble, the right to gather and have speech. I don't think this is a good plan at all. I don't think we should be doing that at all. Yeah.
Well, you run into, and I may be butchering this, but Jordan Peterson would talk about in Russia, whenever they would, I believe it was Russia, where the people could go and say, well, this person is not faithful to the party, and then that person would disappear. Do you remember what it was? A Gulag Archipelago?
Oh, yeah. That's it's not Viktor Frankl. It's I know the book. I read the book, and it was horrifying. I got to a certain point on a plane, I wanted to throw up. You're right, though. The informers.
But think about it. If you knew someone who wasn't doing what was good for everybody, what do? You tell on them, and then becomes a weapon. I mean, it will become, if it stays that way in society, it could become a weapon. Now, there's also the reality of this is just a freak out weird time where gathering in groups just happens to maybe be dangerous. So for a bit of time, you have to give common sense to people who say, don't do this. I think you give credence to the idea that, okay, let's do this for a while. Once the social distancing,
so are you
may
saying
be off,
if people are doing it, should the police officer be able to stop by there and break it up and send everybody home?
I think at this point, the police officers are going to be like, yeah, good luck with that. We're not going to go to that and break up a public gathering, because guess what that police officer has to do? He has to go in the middle of a crowd and move them away like bullshit. He's going to be like, look, if these people all want to get sick, I guess they're all going to get sick. Like, that's how it's going to be handled.
Well, that's why Cuomo,
whether or not it's supposed to be, that's what's going to happen.
When I
they're
saw
going to be like, if you have together and you get this, then that's on you, which honestly is kind of a pretty libertarian principle. If you really want to get down to it, and if society would say, enter society at your own risk. Now think about that. Then it would we would start to really get a marketplace value on risk, because then people would say, there's no government telling me not to do it. There's either I have to weigh in my own mind the risk of going out. Now the people that go out are probably not going to be real smart, and they're probably going to infect each other, and it's going to be
because at the end of the day, how are you going to force the people that are working to pay for the people that aren't? You got to have somewhere along the line, people that are doing work make the decisions.
You better go read some Ayn Rand, I guess. That's kind of the basis of theirs, the producers, and I don't know. I think that there's humanity in it. I think nobody that raises food or is an essential worker, nobody feels disposable. Nobody thinks that, like, they're not going to deprive their fellow man of food if you had to, within families and communities. Like, that's not going to happen to the best ability that people are humans. The reality is if
Go ahead.
If the world stays at its current pace, where everybody's locked down and a whole bunch of people aren't working, then you've got to have a philosophical discussion of, are we really going? Whose time is valuable? Is the time of somebody sitting there watching Netflix who says, I need to get paid my wages? Well, maybe you need subsistence wages where you can buy some food and some water and a few nice things or whatever, but you don't need to make sure that the car that's in your garage that is not being used for society, make sure that payment goes. Like, there will be a point of essential and non-essential capital allocation if you want to get to it. I mean, and that will be decided by society. But I think that there's so many levels
That's
of this.
Truly
that really,
socialism, though. If you do any of that, that line ends up becoming how much of the responsibility is borne by the state, borne by the workers, and how much do you get to just take from them? Because, like,
well, I think that it will have to be a defined line of not even, it won't be like a, hey, this day forward, this is what my value is, but there is a point in time whenever, man, I don't know. What are you going to do if you raise food or you protect society or doctors? Are you going to say, no, I'm not doing it? Because that's within I don't know. What do doctors and people that, like, I don't have an oath to anything. I have an oath to my family. If I have to, I'll shoot a cow in the yard, but that's my existence. Other people, are they going to not show up for work? The essentials, or the people that have to keep going to keep the world spinning?
I think that as long as there is a net for people, they will choose to do I imagine myself in this kind of John Locke state of nature. There's no food and I have to shoot the deer that are in my backyard and hope that I don't get chronic wasting disease from it. But, like, outside of that, would I collect food stamps or would I go out and do lettuce harvesting on John Boltz's lettuce farm down in Yuma, Arizona, in the Arizona sun all summer long, cutting out lettuce in order to make my money? I can tell you that it would be damn tempting to take some check, because that work, I know how hard that work is. And that is brutal work that those people are only doing to be able to get their kids on to a better life, but they never had something better. They didn't step down to go do that work. That'll be really hard to do.
We're all vegetable pickers now.
Yeah.
That's what you don't get. We're all vegetable pickers.
I hope not, man. I hope that people are able to do work
in the sense that you mentioned their wish was to come here and provide a better life for their kids. In that sense, we're all in that boat. All we want to do is, especially I think middle-aged people, is get your kids, get them through this, get them on to, there's a vaccine, life goes back to normal. Treasure this time, make it worth their time to learn something, so that when life reemerges, that they actually have an appreciation and have a better understanding, grasp of it. So in a sense, we're all that migrant worker just trying to make a better life for our kids. So if you notice, they don't have a lot of hang-ups that a lot of really affluent people do, because they focus on what is immediate, necessary, and most important in their life at that time, which we've all kind of went back to.
And, man, that is a great way to circle back to the very place we began, which was talking about you and your family in a time of coronavirus. And I got to tell you, man, I feel a sense of happiness and joy with the fact that you are isolated, at least in some regard, from coronavirus, and that you're having this time with your family. It's inspiring, and it makes me want to spend my time with my wife and make sure that when we get out of the quarantine that we still think about life in this way. So thank you for coming on the podcast. Thanks for being who you are. And, man, keep producing beef, because the world needs it. We're all vegetable pickers now, man.
That's right. Hey, man, thanks for having me on. And I can't say thank you enough for doing all these. This is really cool. I think one day it'll be in the stuff where they actually go back and there's a record of real conversations that happened with individuals, because there's so much media bullshit that really the only way to get to it is to have real conversations like this in long form. So, and I think people appreciate it. So I've seen a lot of good things out of it.
It's been a joy to do. I've gotten to talk with people like you. So, man, get back to your family. Have a great night tonight. And thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.
Yep. Peace.
Oh, wait, one thing. If people wanted to get a hold of you on Twitter, how do they do that? And what's your podcast? People should know about it.
And you also forgot me about 2 weeks from now. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
2 weeks from now, you ask all your guests on the deal.
Yeah,
2 weeks from
that's
now.
Right. Yeah, let's not end it.
All right, okay. Yeah, Jerod McDaniel, just at Jerod McDaniel. The podcast is Ag Uncensored. You can get that. Go to iTunes. It's just Ag Uncensored, all one word. It doesn't exist. You have to type it.
And now let me ask you the other question, the 2 weeks question. I can't believe I didn't think of that. So, Jerod McDaniel, 2 weeks from today, what will the world look like?
It'll be enchanted dystopia. I think we'll still be getting used to the idea. I think people will be much more hunkered down, but I think they'll be more desensitized to it. And you'll start to see the people who are like, screw this, I've been inside long enough. And you'll start to see that part of society emerging. And you'll also see people who are still screaming to stay at home. And somewhere along the line, there'll be a breakthrough that allows some way to test if people who've had it maybe can go work. I think about that's going to be further out in 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks, you'll still be calamity. I think we're still getting used to the idea of a new world, and the rules are still being written. So that's kind of where I see it.
Great. Well, I hope as they're writing them, they listen to what you have to say. So we'll talk later,
All right.
Jerod. Thanks for catching me up on that. We'll talk later, man.
Yep.